Whoa, wait a minute. Something's wrong. I was like, something is a little bit too close for comfort. Give me a second here. That is bizarre. Hold on, let me go. How's that? That is much better. Woof. Like extreme close-up of my face. I don't want anyone to go blind here. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today is November 26, 2015. Yes, it is Thanksgiving here in the United States, and welcome to the Thanksgiving edition of Ask the King. It's the show where I answer your questions, whether it's via thekingofhate.com forums, Twitter, @TheyCallMeDSP, or my Facebook page, which is also They Call Me DSP. So thank you to all of you who submitted your questions over the past couple of months, because I have not had a chance to do an episode of Ask the King since way back when, I believe in September was the last episode. This past month of October was so busy with new releases that I didn't really have time for much vlogging at all. And, oh, excuse me, disgusting belch. This week in particular, I wanted to do an episode of Ask the King to celebrate Thanksgiving, to answer your questions that have accumulated, and it's going to be a fun episode, okay? So, FYI, if you want to be sure to get your question answered on Ask the King, the way to do it is not this, I'm pointing the wrong way, is this. Look at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, patreon.com/darksidephil. For a $20 or more pledge, you will qualify for the perk that allows you to submit your question to be answered on the show, and in fact, there's 3 people who actually will have their questions answered right here on Ask the King. In regards to Patreon, very quickly, I just want to let everyone know, because it is nearing the end of the month. I believe there's only 5 days left to pledge to my Patreon for this month. And since I'm not live streaming today, I don't have an opportunity to mention it, so I'll mention it very briefly here. We're trying to hit the goal, the funding goal for the month, which is the same goal that we have every month. If we hit the funding goal, I'll be doing a a platforming marathon. 2 games are actually from Rare, which is why originally I was going to call it the Rareathon. And one is not. One is Crash Bandicoot 3. The other choices are Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day HD. If we hit the goal, patrons who pledge $5 or more in the month of November, so 5 days left to pledge, will be voting on which of those 3 games you want to see me play at the end of December in a marathon, okay? The marathons this year have been very successful. Everyone seems to like them, whether it was me doing Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2, the indie game marathons that I've done, the Halloween marathon we had last month, and yes, this coming Monday, the Rockathon, where I'm going to be playing Rock Band 4 all day. So these have been pretty good. People really enjoy them. So hopefully we hit the funding goal. Right now, we have not hit it yet, but we're close. So check it out at patreon.com/darksidephil. And now, without further ado, let's get into the questions, because there's a ton of them, okay? And like I said, we'll start with the patrons. So the very first question here is from Just a Human. And he actually has 2 different quicker questions here, so let's get into them. His first question is, Phil, are you planning on doing a video regarding how certain developers, like Konami or Nintendo, seem to have decided to ignore their audience these days, leading to a lot of backlash? Just curious about your stance on this. No, I'm not going to do a video just about it, because I don't do that. Like, if you look at my videos, I don't just all of a sudden out of the blue do a vlog about how these developers aren't listening. But this is the kind of show where I answer that stuff, okay? Now here's the deal. If you were to say, why are certain game developers, or are they listening, are they not listening to their audience, what's the deal? You have to really look big picture, okay? Konami, back in the 1990s when Konami was huge, and it was late 80s, early 90s into the mid 90s, the era of the NES and then the Super NES and stuff like that, when, you know, Konami was synonymous with big titles like Metal Gear and Castlevania and stuff like that, right? Did they really listen to feedback back then? Because I don't think they did. I think back then, game development was more like, it wasn't an interactive medium. They didn't have social media, per se. It was kind of like, we develop a game, we put it out there, and if it sells well, great, I guess we did good. But it's not like you listened to direct feedback from fans or anything like that. Today is much different. Today, you've got social media, you've got, you know, gaming media that constantly react to things that are going on all over the world, and fan backlashes and fan movements and stuff like that. And it's a lot easier today in 2015 to somehow get your opinion across to a big game developer than it was way back when. So when you look at the big guys, right, Nintendo, Konami, they really operate by that old school model. We don't listen to social media. We don't listen to the outcry of the fans because that didn't exist back when we were super popular, right? So we just do what we always have done. We think that we're going to develop an awesome AAA experience for you. We're going to put it out there, and hopefully you buy it. And, due to our track record, we believe we know what we're doing. Unfortunately, what's turning out is that that's not the case anymore, especially with a company like Konami, who's massively cutting back on the video games that they're producing, right? The fact that they had such a horrible fallout with Hideo Kojima, leading to all the controversy and everything this year regarding Metal Gear Solid 5. And the fact that they're selling pachinko machines, which is a major part of their business, but that they're pushing game franchises and fusing them with their pachinko machines instead of focusing on making new and better games. Obviously, the fans are going to say, what are you doing, right? What on earth is Konami doing? They are a game company. They're one of the big guys in the business, and all of a sudden, they're just, abandoning the gamers, and it's kind of true with a lot of the things you hear about the mistreatment of employees and the fact that, deadlines are given and time is cut and games are released haphazardly. And then you look at Nintendo, kind of not the same situation, but kind of the same situation, because it's not that they're rushing out games or they're making bad decisions in regards to where their company's going directions-wise, but they don't listen to the feedback. They haven't produced a console in the past 5 to 10 years that was anywhere equal to the power of the other competitors' consoles. They even say, all right, we're not in competition with the other game companies. Yes, you are. Duh. It doesn't matter that you want to do things differently. You're still in competition with the other video game companies. So Nintendo, they try to think outside the box and do things differently. And unfortunately, for the past 10 years, outside of the insane popularity of the Wii that was a flash in the pan success and then fizzled out, really, what has Nintendo been successful at besides selling little amiibo figures, right? And it's funny because the fans will directly say to Nintendo, we want this from you. We would like to see this. Don't give us stupid gimmicky controllers. Don't give us motion controls. Give us hardcore Nintendo games that are great. Give us a console that's as powerful as all the other ones. Give us a reason to buy Nintendo games again. And all Nintendo's really done is put out first-party titles that are kind of and then they release amiibos. Now, people go and buy the amiibos. So, you're supporting their horrible business practices. You know what I mean? So, really, the question, his question is, am I going to do a video about it? No. But what is my stance on it? The thing is, I really feel the companies that are not listening to fan feedback, right, is because they're in that old school mentality. They're still living in the 1980s and 90s. They don't realize it's 2015. They don't realize that the interactivity, getting feedback, social media, market feedback is the big way to be successful in this day and age. They're still living in a bygone era. And it's sad to see companies like Konami and Nintendo be a shadow of their former selves in a lot of ways, Nintendo right now is synonymous with little action figures. When you ask a little kid about Nintendo, do you think they're going to talk about any Nintendo games that were released this year? What Nintendo games were released this year? Splatoon? Mario Maker? Anything else? I'm sure there were, but who knows? Who remembers? But I'll tell you what, everyone talks about a new amiibo when they're released. So, here's the thing, and a lot of people will, I want to bring this up. A lot of people will say to me, but Phil, success is success. So who cares if Nintendo's biggest thing this year was amiibos, right? Who gives a shit? They're successful. Okay. So I want to do a direct comparison here. General Electric was a company synonymous in the United States. This was an American company who was incredibly worldwide known for making electronics, whether it was home appliances or certain electronic things around your house, all right? For whatever reason, the company started to crumble. And internally, they were trying to figure out what can we do. So they had a guy come up in the company that they hired to basically save the company. His name was, I think it was Bill Walsh. I know his last name was Walsh. He comes in. What did he do? Did he make it so that, operational costs were less? Did he reorganize the company? No. Here's what he did. He said, as of today, we're no longer an appliance company. We are going to do finance. Huh? Yeah, he literally walked in and he said, as of today, we're doing finance. So all the company that's doing electronics, we're going to slowly phase out. We're not going to be that company anymore. We're going to do finance. We're going to do loans. We're going to do stuff like that. And he was successful, all right? But what kind of success? There's a lot of people who praise Bill Walsh and say he's one of the best minds of corporate America. There's a lot of people who criticize Bill Walsh to see he was an asshole. He cut out the entire corporation's chunks, right, of that made the company. Imagine if there was a Subway sandwich company. We make sandwiches, and tomorrow they're going to now sell cars just to stay afloat. Now, how many people lost their jobs? You know what I mean? Can you say Nintendo is a successful company when at their core they're supposed to be a game company, but all they're successful at right now is selling figures? I'm just throwing that out there. And of course, there will be people who will agree, who will disagree. Let me know your opinion in the comments of the video, all right? All right, so the next question from Just a Human. Have you ever considered trying out audiobooks? I started doing this again at work, and I found that they may help me concentrate a lot better. I made this suggestion because if you don't have time to physically read a book, this could be a viable alternative. For me, the issue isn't I don't have time to read a book. The issue is I just don't have time, period. I don't, the free time, I'll give everyone a rundown of what my day usually is like. I wake up in the morning, use the bathroom. Leanna and I wake up. We go downstairs. Typically, we have some kind of maybe a mini breakfast or at least a coffee. We see how the hamsters are doing. We get the house or whatever ready for the day. I'll send out a few tweets to say what we're doing that morning or whatever. If there's errands we need to do, like laundry or whatever, we get stuff done in the morning. Then I start gaming, whether it's live on stream or not, and that lasts anywhere from upwards of 4+ hours. Then after I'm done with that for another half hour or so, I set up videos to upload. Then I head downstairs and we eat dinner, which takes about half an hour to 45 minutes. Then we clean up after dinner, which could take, upwards of half an hour to 45 minutes. Plus we do more chores or whatever needs to be done around the house that I could set up for the second session of gameplay. After the second session of gameplay, which lasts about 2 hours, now we've got about another 45 minutes where I'm shutting down for the day. I'm getting ready for the next day. I'm uploading the videos for the day. I'm uploading my schedule, yada, yada, yada. So literally we've just covered about a 12 to 16 hour span. Okay, now at the very end of the day, I have a few hours to kind of unwind. And usually at that time, what I do is I go downstairs with Leanna. We'll have a snack. We'll, again, see what the hamsters are doing downstairs and maybe mess around with them a little bit, change their cage if we need to do that, yada, yada, yada. And then we watch maybe television or TV for an hour or two, a couple hours a night, and that's it. And that's my day. Then I go to sleep. So in that time, where was the time, you know what I mean, to read a book or whatever? That's my day, and that's my day almost every single day, unless I'm taking time off or it's a Saturday when we take half the day to go get dinner and do errands like grocery shopping. That's every day for me. So I don't have these insane... This is what people don't seem to realize. Well, Phil, why don't you do this new thing? Phil, why don't you just do this? Phil, it's the hardcore gaming season. Why aren't you playing 8 hours instead of 5 to 6 hours of gameplay? Where does the time come from exactly? So if I take away from the 1 to 2 hours I get to unwind at night, now what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, now I'm going to be insanely stressed. So audiobooks are cool. It's true. You can probably listen to an audiobook and it goes faster maybe than reading. Or at least it doesn't take the same amount of concentration, right? When you're reading, your eyes have to hit the page. Now you're translating what you see on the page to the written word, from the written word to what you're hearing it in your mind. Then you're translating that into what's actually, you're visualizing what's happening in the book. Versus audiobook, it's already someone talking to you. It skips that step. It skips the reading step. But I wouldn't be interested in audiobooks unless there was really like a book series I wanted to read. And right now there's really nothing. It's funny because most books now end up getting translated. If they're popular books, they get translated into television or movies or whatever. And of course, as you can argue, usually the source material is always better. I agree, there usually is. But right now, I really have no interest in audiobooks. But thanks for the subject. It's interesting that you brought it up and talked a little bit about it there. Okay. Okay. So up next, the next patron to have his questions answered, Sammy Samosa. And he says, first, I'd like to say happy Thanksgiving to all of the fans of DSP and DSP Gaming. Thanks to you, DSP, for providing endless amounts of entertainment over the years and for more to come. So the first question, which company do you think is more out of touch with their fans nowadays, the WWE or Nintendo? Now, here we go. I already kind of addressed this. I explained how Nintendo's out of touch with their fans, right? WWE's a little different. Excuse me, because I am still getting over a head cold, so that's why you're hearing these nasty noises. The WWE decided, for whatever reason, in the mid-2000s, that they wanted to become a PG-rated company. They wanted to cater to a younger audience, children, and they felt that the Attitude Era programming that had become insanely popular in the late 90s and early 2000s was too adult-oriented, and so they had to go to a more, I wouldn't say more mature, but more kid-friendly kind of a subject matter. And when they did that, they completely isolated part of their audience. Like, that audience who became a huge part of them in the Attitude Era said, what gives? We're watching for that, and now you've dumbed it down. You have matches. There are matches where every once in a while there's a little bit of blood. They find the wrestlers hundreds of thousands of dollars. There was an issue, Batista had an issue with Chris Jericho. He bladed, and Vince fined him $300,000 or something astronomical like that. It's a different era. It really is. Now, I don't know why WWE decided to do that. WWE hasn't really turned its back on the fans. Now, WWE traditionally never always listened to the fans. They never always gave the fans what they wanted, okay? There's a difference here. Nintendo thinks they know better than everyone, does not listen to any kind of social media feedback or anything like that whatsoever, and they go their own way. And sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not. It's that 90s mentality of game development. WWE also has certain management in the company that thinks they know better than everyone else. And they actually look for slight movements so that they can kind of squash them. The Zack Ryder movement. Zack Ryder was a wrestler who really had nothing going for him. He had been one of the henchmen of Edge during Edge's world title reign. And then really he had this really shitty, I'm a Long Island guy, Long Island Iced Z, really bad character. He went online, he started a YouTube channel, started putting videos up, won over the internet fans, and single-handedly made himself popular. WWE acknowledged this, put him on TV for a few months as a champion, and then immediately squashed him and wrote him out of everything, and now he's just a jobber, and you barely see him ever again. The fans didn't abandon him. The WWE did. It's like there's management in the company that likes to see people become successful, and then, oh, well, we didn't write that, so fuck that. Let's use our power to squash it. It's almost like this weird complex, and I like to say it, it's Vince. It's Vince McMahon, who's the head of the company. Now, there's other people in the company that are doing things right, like NXT, up-and-comers. Let's showcase up-and-coming wrestlers. Let's show real high-quality wrestling. Let's show the new talent. That's the kind of stuff that's actually working out. People are liking that stuff. That's a reason to get the WWE Network on a daily basis or a monthly basis, and that's going to put money into the pockets of the WWE. So it's kind of weird. There's this dichotomy. In Nintendo, it's just we know better than you, and we don't care if you think that you like what we do or not. We're going to keep going our own way. WWE's kind of 50-50. The old guard is still in that mentality, but the new era of people moving in, and a lot of people say it's actually Triple H who's responsible for a lot of the things that happen in NXT. I don't know if that's true or not. That will be the era that will get them to be popular in the future. We'll see what happens, but that's the difference. Nintendo, 100% old guard, old school, no new kinds of thinking whatsoever. WWE, kind of a 50-50 management shift, and we'll see what happens. The next question from Sammy, he says, after 2 years of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which is your preferred console of choice, and what are some improvements that you'd like to see? See, here's the thing. Even though 90% of the time I play games on the PlayStation 4, I don't think, honestly, when you really look at the two consoles next to each other, is there a major benefit or detriment to either one? Not really. Each one has its benefits and detriments, right? Xbox One, typically games come out earlier. Typically on Xbox One, you get a midnight release, it's going to come out. You get an episodic release, it comes out earlier on Xbox One. That's good. The controller of Xbox One, I like better than the controller of PS4. And I think that's a little bit more durable. I think it has a better feel to it. And I'm playing Fallout 4 and I'm loving it on this controller. I think that this controller is a little bit inferior. Graphically, I think most people could argue that Xbox One is slightly inferior to the PlayStation 4. That it does have a little bit of a nerf to it. There's a lot of games that only run at 900p on Xbox One that run at full 1080p on PlayStation 4. It's a negligible difference. The naked eye is not going to notice this difference. Just recently, I played Star Wars Battlefront, the beta. I played on PS4, and then the retail final game I played on Xbox One, and they look the same to me. So really, even though there's a slight graphical difference, I didn't see it. So really, when it comes down to it, is there a reason that one's better than the other? Not really. They've got the same apps. They've got the same features. They both play Blu-ray movies now. You could argue a little nitpicky thing to one or the other, but really, ultimately, is there one that's like, this is the choice of this console generation? And the absolute answer is really no. However, here's what happened, is at launch, because the Xbox One had such negative press from all the bullshit going on, oh, it was going to be the online-only console, we weren't going to be able to trade in your games and all that, because of all the negative bullshit, everyone ran out and bought the PlayStation 4, and there is an installed user base now for the PlayStation 4 over Xbox One. Even though Xbox One has been selling pretty successfully the past few years, there's way more PlayStation 4 owners out there. So ultimately, is there anything really better of one console over the other? I don't think so. But I think undoubtedly Sony has won the console where they won it in 2013. With all that controversy and shit that happened with the Xbox One and them having to go back and change their whole strategy, it blew it out of the water. And it is what it is. And when you're behind in a console launch game like that and you're playing catch up, how many console exclusives is it going to take for Xbox One to be successful. And it's actually interesting to look at a game like recently, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Heavily pushed, console exclusive. Everyone liked the Tomb Raider reboot 2 years ago. And the game sold terribly as an Xbox exclusive. So I'm just saying, okay? What are some improvements that I would like to see? What improvements? What improvements could you ask for these consoles? Less game crashes? Because I certainly see games crash a lot more on these modern consoles than they did the last gen. What can you ask more from a console? Now you can get the games on demand, right? You don't even have to go to the store anymore. You can watch movies, everything instantly on demand. They all play Blu-ray discs. I don't know. What more could you ask for? Honestly, out of the box. More battery life on a controller? Like, this controller sucks. This controller's battery life is terrible. It's like 3 to 4 hours tops. Versus this one runs way better, but it runs on AA batteries, not on a rechargeable battery. So again, give or take, there's no real definitive better console, and there's no real, like, what could I ask for? I don't know. I'd be interested to see what they're going to do with the next console wave. Now that this one's out, like, it seems like all the modern conveniences are in there, right? Maybe they'll actually do voice commands that work. Yeah, right. That'll never happen. Okay, the final patron question, and then we'll move on to the general questions. This one's from Evoker to the Face, and he says, I figured this would actually be a great question for a Thanksgiving episode of Ask the King. How do you feel about Black Friday, or rather now, it's Black Thursday for a lot of retail companies? My brother has to work at Walmart all day today and can't even spend the day with my siblings and I for Thanksgiving. Walmart thinks that being open on Thanksgiving will give them more sales, but in reality, they're just moving the sales that they probably would have had on Friday anyway back to Thursday. How do you feel about this practice? Is it wrong of them to do this? Am I just upset because I can't spend one of the days a year with my family? What's your take? I've already talked about this at length here on Ask the King. I've actually talked about it on John Rambo's podcast. We used to do a Black Friday special. Yeah, the bottom line is this, ladies and gentlemen. Black Friday is a fucked up thing, right? The fact that businesses, we got to go from the red to the black, right? Why are you in the red? Like, why couldn't you run your business properly that you were making good enough sales all year that you didn't have to try to do these insane last-minute deals to get consumers to rush out to buy themselves presents or, and that's the other thing, too. Black Friday is supposed to be this day when it used to be everyone would run out and do their Christmas shopping. Now it's because, the deals they got to get the deals, got to go out on Thursday and Friday and get the deals. They're buying stuff for themselves. We can finally buy that big screen TV we've wanted for half price, right? They're not buying stuff as presents for the family. They're going out. This is consumerism at its best and worst, right? Because it makes sense. This is the day to do it because everything's cheap. But at the same time, people are completely losing the message that this is a day of thanks. This is a day to give thanks to everything. For the fact that you're healthy, you're happy, that you have a roof over your head, for friends, for family, for everything. This is not a day, I need to rush out and fucking go buy a TV or whatever it is that may be super / discounted. It's that American mentality that I deserve everything. I deserve, no matter what my job is, no matter how much money I make, because I'm an American, I deserve everything. So I should be able to go out and buy whatever I want and put it on credit because I don't even make the money to pay it off. And I should be able to have everything, right? That's the American way. It's the American dream is to have this luxurious lifestyle with all these crazy luxurious things. And it's ridiculous. And the American people are not living a lifestyle within their means. Everyone's living on credit. I'm to blame too. I live on credit. I'm not above or any better than everyone else, right? When I moved across the country last year, I financed it with credit, and I'm still paying it off, and I'll still be paying it off for a while. So, Black Friday is a messed up thing. It really is. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who goes out to buy something on Black Friday is at fault. I actually know people who go out and do Christmas shopping, real Christmas shopping, buying presents for the family and stuff on Black Friday. And it does give them an opportunity to get things for a little bit cheaper than they normally would get them so they could get more presents for people. That's cool. But the things you see on Black Friday, the brawls breaking out in stores and people hitting each other with cars and stabbing each other and doing double German suplexes and shit to fucking get a fucking Barbie doll. It's like, are you kidding me? It's just out of control. And it really is. It shows. If you want to, if ever the world outside of the United States needed evidence that the United States is not this big moral authority, the best country in the world, just show some of the clips from Black Friday. That's all you got to do. Show the shit from Black Friday, how sick and greedy we actually are as a country, as a people. that we all need these things. This is the most important. I will risk bodily harm and fuck people up to get a deal on something. It's out of control. It's insanity. And America needs a wake-up call, because this is it. The people are very complacent in America. We're happy to be living these shadowed lives of not being self-conscious or self-aware of what's going on around us. As long as I could just live here and I get this big screen TV, even though I can't afford it, I'm happy, right? I don't care the fact that, in 20 years, I'm not going to get Social Security because everything's falling apart, and that Donald Trump may become fucking president and all this shit going on. I'll be oblivious to that as long as I can get my big screen TV. And that's not a way to go through life. Ignorant is not a way to go through life, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Black Friday is an atrocity. It always has been. And, I think at this point we're coming up to a point in time where you realize it's now, I've been doing this for 7 years on YouTube, right? I may have to go back and start telling some of my stories over, because there are some really interesting stories and stuff regarding Black Friday that I've told before that I could tell again that most people probably haven't heard. So, we'll see. All right, so now let's get to the general questions. First one being from LadiesMan2166, and he asks the following. Phil, I'm thinking about getting a handheld gaming console, and my question is, should I get a PS Vita, or should I get the Nintendo 3DS, which is better and has a better library? I mean, if you had asked me this question 2-3 years ago, I'd probably be like, I don't know. Now, it's definitive. There is a yes or no, black and white answer. The PS Vita is all but dead. It was a failed experiment by Sony. I said it when it launched that I didn't think it was going to be successful, and here we are several years later, and it's not. It's a joke. It's a waste of money. There aren't many great games for it. The games that are for it are basically like PlayStation 3 Lite titles. And the bottom line is, why was the PS Vita not successful? It's very simple. Too expensive. It was way too expensive. $300 for a handheld console when you could buy a mainstream gaming console for around $300 to $400. Why are you going to drop that much money into a handheld? And Sony's argument was, because it's so powerful, the graphics are great. To which I answer, if I want to care about graphics, I'll fucking play at home on my TV. No one cares about amazing graphics on a portable device. The idea is portability. And the thing is, when you've got this already, you already got a smartphone. And the smartphone has hundreds of free addicting games. Who's going to drop $300 for a gaming console that's portable? No one. And that was actually what happened. Almost no one bought it. It tanked. It did not ever sell well. And now, in the modern era, most people only talk about the PS Vita as a PlayStation 4 accessory to do remote play on their PlayStation 4. It's that much of a joke. The 3DS, I don't really think I even need to say anything about the 3DS. Best-selling handheld console pretty much ever. I think the Game Boy might have slightly beaten in sales, but overall, it's 10 years strong. It's still going, the Nintendo 3DS. Well, now we're in the 3DS instead of the DS, but it's pretty much the same console. Insane library, right? Insane amount of games and variety. Yeah, you're not going to get the best graphics, but you're going to get awesome gameplay. You're going to get these franchise titles that have been on the DS for a long-ass time, and hands down, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's a better, Nintendo understood what they were doing when they designed their 3DS and DS models. It's portable, and it's a good gameplay system. Not, it has fancy graphics and it costs $300 because it's a PlayStation Lite. Who cares? Give me a good console with good games, and that's all I care about, and that's what Nintendo did right. You gotta go 3DS all the way. The only person I could recommend a PS Vita to is if you already own a PlayStation 4 and you think that the remote play capability of the game could help you, then I would definitely recommend getting the PS Vita. But outside of that, you gotta go with the 3DS at this point, okay? Next question is from Anthony77FX, and he says, hey Phil, I'd like to know more about your thoughts on Konami announcing they're going to continue the Metal Gear Solid series even without Hideo Kojima. Funny because we already mentioned Konami on this episode. Just recently, Konami's community manager stated they plan to have Platinum Games, of all people, develop the series' future titles in the future. As you know, Platinum Games previously developed Metal Gear Rising Revengeance back in 2013, and they also developed games like Bayonetta, Vanquish, and they're doing an upcoming Star Fox game too. From my perspective, this decision could be a good idea because, Platinum Games has a good reputation, but I still much rather prefer Kojima developing the series instead. What are your thoughts? Well, here's the thing. You're absolutely right, especially Metal Gear Solid. When you say Metal Gear Solid, it's synonymous with Hideo Kojima. He's had his hands in every single project. He's pretty much the guy who designs those games, you know what I mean? He has this big archetype structure of what the story is and everything. And yes, there's tons of people who work on the games, but he's kind of the guy synonymous for the series. The only comparison I can give where this has happened and actually kind of been successful is Halo. Halo 1 through 3 was designed by Bungie. And then Bungie wanted to do their own thing and they went off to do something else. And Microsoft themselves bought out and owned the Halo franchise and decided they wanted to continue it. And now we've had Halo 4 and 5, but I hate to say it, the majority of people who've played Halo 4 and 5 agree that the original trilogy of games and everything that Bungie did, like Reach and all that stuff, was better. As soon as Bungie left, that was it. When Bungie left, it was like, you know, these games have lost their sparkle. The plot of the game has become shitty, right? Like the campaigns of Halo 4 and 5, quite honestly, the plot was garbage compared to the first 3 games. And, you know, a lot of people will keep buying them, and they are successful. They're money makers, but why are they money makers? If those games weren't called Halo, would people be buying them? That's the question. So here's what I think. I think that Konami will make more Metal Gear games. And, you know, whether it's Platinum Games or whoever develops them, I do think that they will sell. Will they sell as well as the previous games? Probably not. But I think they will sell. But I think, again, the same thing will happen. A consensus, people will say, well, you could tell that Kojima was not involved. It doesn't have his flair, his touch, his style to it. And because of that, it's not as good as the originals. And Konami has the right to do that. They own the Metal Gear franchise, right? Take a look at Castlevania. What happened with the Castlevania series? How tried and true awesome it was in the 80s and 90s as a platforming series. And then when it got Symphony of the Night, and that it blew up again. And then it kind of turned into these most recent games where one of them was pretty good and then the next one was a piece of shit. And now it looks like they have no plans to even make any more Castlevania video games, at least that they're talking about. So it's kind of the same thing. The longer that a franchise goes on, it loses the creative vision of the original people who made it. And, you know, are they going to be any good? I fully believe there will be more Metal Gear Solid games. I don't think that they'll be as good as the ones that have come out previously. I just don't. Okay. Next question is from I Will Break You. And he says, hey Phil, with the news of the campaign being cut from Call of Duty Black Ops 3 on the last gen console versions of the game, and with the news that there is no campaign at all in Rainbow Six Siege, do you think that campaigns in first-person shooters are now a thing of the past? Will all future Call of Duties and first-person shooters contain no campaign? What do you think? Let me put it this way. I think that there was an era and a time when first-person shooters were based on campaign before multiplayer became huge, right? Look at games like Wolfenstein, Doom, Duke Nukem. Carry that into a new era. There were, like, Halo. A lot of people liked Halo because of the campaign. That's what got people into Halo and made it a great game that was popular on the original Xbox. And so when you look at those things, I think there is always potential to make first-person shooters that have great campaigns. But recently, the past 5 to 10 years, what are the first-person shooters that sell the best? The ones that have addictive multiplayer. Really, even if they have their own campaign, it seems the addictive multiplayer is where it's at. And let's face it, even though Call of Duty has a campaign every year, there's a large chunk of people who buy the Call of Duty game every year that never even play the single-player campaign. They all go right to the multiplayer, and that's all they care about, right? So you have to understand that there is an audience for it. And the bottom line is this. If you really were a hardcore fan of Call of Duty, you probably would have gone the extra mile, saved up money, bought the next-gen console, so you could get the better version of the game. I mean, the game developer outright admitted, listen, the last-gen versions of Call of Duty are nerfed. They're not as good. They don't look anywhere near as good as the ones on the modern consoles. There's no campaign. They came out and outright said it. At least they said it, right? Imagine if you bought the game thinking it's the full game and you didn't get half the content of the people who bought it on Xbox One or PS4. That would have been ridiculous. But moving forward, will these first-person shooters have a campaign? I don't know. I mean, I certainly see the reason why. Like, for example, the campaign of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 this year, I'll be honest with everyone, I liked it. I thought it was actually quite good. If anything, the issue that was not with the story or the gameplay of the campaign for me, it was that the online matchmaking refused to work, and we kept dropping, and it became a nightmare to even play this game with people and do it cooperatively, which is how it was designed. But the campaign at its core was good. It had links back to the original, like, Call of Duty games. World at War had, like, Nazis and stuff in it. And that was pretty sweet that it had those ties. And I think that there is a place for first-person shooters with great campaigns. But will it be in these established franchises anymore? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I look at a game like Bioshock Infinite. That game was just campaign. It had no multiplayer. And that campaign was outstanding, and it was one of my favorite games of the year, a couple years ago. And I still stand by that. It's an amazing game. So in that regard, yes, it makes sense that a first-person shooter would have a campaign, but maybe we'll see a dichotomy now. You'll have first-person shooters that are single-player narrative experiences with the campaign, and you'll see multiplayer-based first-person shooters, and maybe we won't see them all. But here's the thing, ultimately. Here's the question I posed to you, and then, by the way, we're going to take a break because I've been going on for about almost 30 minutes in this video already, so we'll end this part and we'll do a new one. Here's the thing you got to ask yourself, all right? If you only have a certain amount of money to go to the store and buy a game, all right? You cannot get every game. You know, you're not like me where it's your job to play every game. You have to really carefully pick and choose the games that you're going to play. Are you going to go for the game that has addictive multiplayer only, or are you going to go for the game that has the addictive multiplayer plus a zombies mode plus a single-player campaign? And some people might say, I don't care. I'm only going to play it for the addictive multiplayer anyway, so therefore I don't really give a shit about the other stuff. And so you might have an answer that's different. But for me, I like bang for my buck. When I buy Call of Duty every year, I know that when I buy that game, I'm going to get 3 completely different experiences. A multiplayer experience, some kind of a challenge mode, and a campaign. And so I know I will get $60 worth of entertainment out of Call of Duty when I buy it every year. Even if the game sucks shit, even if the multiplayer is terrible this year, at least there's a campaign and other stuff to do. You know what I mean? Compare that with a game that's multiplayer only. If you buy it and you end up not liking the multiplayer so much, now what do you do with the game? And so I think that there will be developers that will continue to go above and beyond, and they will put story-based campaigns into their games because they want to sell more copies versus the other game developers that are just going to do the bare minimum. We don't need to do that because we think that the multiplayer is good enough to sell the game. That's great, but they may end up losing out. And especially a Call of Duty in particular, right? That's the game franchise, the first-person shooter that traditionally makes more money than any other game year in, year out. They have the money, they have the development team, they have the clout to make that campaign, where another game that maybe is a different studio may not have that flexibility. So do I think Call of Duty will stop doing campaigns anytime soon? No. I don't. I think that these modern console versions of Call of Duty will have campaigns. But I think it needs to be said, I would like to see more first-person shooters with campaigns. Like narrative campaigns. Like I said, BioShock. Besides BioShock Infinite, what was the last first-person shooter that we played that has a great campaign? You could argue, well, Fallout 4. Yeah, but it's not really a first-person shooter. I call it more of a sim RPG exploration kind of game than it's not really a pure first-person shooter. You know what I mean? So, all right. So that is it for part 1 of Ask the King. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Before I adjourn here for a quick break, and then obviously you can watch part 2 and 3, which will be separate videos right here on the King of Hate Vlogs on YouTube. This is a special thank you to patrons who pledged $10 or more last month in October. You're the ones who made this upcoming Rockathon on Monday happen. I cannot wait to play Rock Band 4. Again, check out, I always point the wrong way, patreon.com/DarksidePhil. Pledge, because there's only 5 days left, and we want to hit this goal so I could do this fun platforming marathon at the end of December, okay? So thank you to the following patrons: Sam Benson, Just a Human, Jelsey 1973, Matt Allen, Brandon Cole, Tom Dooley, Low Tier Lord, Sammy Samosa, Ben Wynn, Stephanie Buys, Louis, Donovan, Demarcus, Fitzhugh, Hitagi Senjugahara, hope I pronounced that right, probably not, Jackie Cheng, Mimi Ignobilia, Angus H.H. Young, Thomas McDonald, Hank Duma, Faithin13, Papa Neeks, QPZ MWN, Malawan, Krishan, Jesus with Lightsabers, how did I get Chris out of that? Myron Tan, Last Rambo 341, Logan Shannon, Bassoon Girl, Jacob Hendricks, Planet Jeff, Neil Dave, Guitar Player 1939, Elysian, Kevin Stiles, Blaine Mayo, Mike Gibson, Joe Wiltshire, Kazi, The Hidden Boss, and Alan Hill. Thank you. Your pledge allowed me to do this cool Rockathon coming up on Monday, and let's hope that we can hit the goal for this month, and I can do a cool platforming marathon to end this year strong, okay? That's it for part 1 of Ask the King. I'll come back with another part, so don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out parts 2 and 3.